chasing it. The bounce sits up. The Dragons are steamrolling to week 2 of the finals.
Inside the last 10 seconds of the game, St George Illawarra to the death, trying. Brown goes to the air. Going back is Mabon, leaping high and taking it in marvellous fashion with Rod Wishart. He has scored an incredible try and ties this fourth game up. Bartram from 18 metres out, he strikes it nicely. St George Illawarra win for the first time in their Premiership life. Here's Nathan Blacklock down the sideline, chipping over the top of Joel Kane. Got a room surface bounce to win the game for the Dragons and book himself a New South Wales Blues origin jumper.
Dragons fans, and welcome to the first ever episode of the Red V Podcast. Hello, my name is Jack Clifton, and the Red V Podcast is your home of everything St George Illawarra in the 2020 season. So we do hope that you enjoy the coverage that we bring to you throughout the season. We're going to be chatting a lot about the Dragons' first grade side, but we're also going to be speaking in regards to their Canterbury Cup side, which has had quite a successful season over the last couple of seasons. They've been putting in some really good performances. We knocked out at the preliminary final stage last year, unfortunately, but were really, really good in terms of winning the grand final in 2016. We'll also take a look at the Jersey Flegg side and also the NRL women's side, which made it to the grand final last year. Before we move on and we go and talk about our guests who we're going to be chatting to tonight, Tristan Bray is filling in for me tonight. No Andrew Daly, unfortunately, until the 10th of February. We've got a very capable guest on our hands in terms of co-hosting this podcast. Tristan, a mad Dragons fan, much like myself. Thanks for helping us out tonight, brother. How you doing?
I'm great, mate. Yes, indeed, I am a Dragons tragic, just like yourself. Good evening, Jack, and good evening, Dragons fans listening out there.
So we are looking forward to a 2020 season, particularly after what transpired in 2019, a 15th place finish for the Dragons. Surely they can't be going down any further than that. There is hope for us moving forward, and we'd love to get your feedback because we want to make this podcast about you, the fans, as well. So not just about what we're talking about, but we want to hear what you want us to talk about as well. And I know there's been lots of people that have got in contact with us so far, and we really appreciate everyone that has done that so far over these last couple of weeks. It was only a week ago that we created the Facebook page, and we've already had over 900 likes on Facebook and 200 new followers on Twitter, and we've had lots of questions for our guest Jamie Soward tonight, so very, very exciting that people want to get in contact with us. So we hope that we do the Dragons fan base justice, and we can be saying the things that you want us to say, as well as being kind of upfront and 100%, not being too biased to maybe pro club or not be too anti St George Illawarra. So we hope we can get that balance right, and we really hope that you guys enjoy listening to this podcast that will be released every Monday night at around 9 o'clock. Tristan, very excited to be chatting to Jamie Soward tonight. The golden years really was the period of time he was at the club, 2009 to 2011. We'll no doubt talk about the Premiership in 2010 that he won. But also a player that's played Origin football and Indigenous All-Stars. So he's also going to take a look at how he thinks the Dragons are going to go in 2020. So very excited to have him on board tonight.
Yeah. Well, you talk about players that have done it all. Keem Smith, Cooper Cronk, blah, blah. Jamie Soward did it all. Won a premiership, wore rep jersey after rep jersey. And I think in his day, he was and he's right up there with the greats. So I'm as excited as you are to chat to the great man himself.
We'll be chatting to Jamie very, very shortly, but I thought as a little bit of a nice taste for Dragons fans that may have forgotten about what Jamie Soward did in the Red V and some of his exhilarating highlights. We could play those highlights for you just to remind you of how influential he was at the Dragons. He was here from 2007 to 2013, and here are some of the highlights of Jamie Soward.
Jamie Soward runs away. Talk about the man of the moments. It's a big lead now for the Dragons. They lead 15-0. But chipping it in behind them, there is Jamie Soward. Who else? And look at him go! He got away from Jordan Tansey. There's nobody in front of him. And Jamie Soward, the hottest player in the NRL.
Soward puts It's a kick across. Boyd rakes it down. Pryor gives it to Soward. And Jamie Soward! He doesn't have to run 40 metres. He sprints 15 and scores. But here's Soward with the sprint off the right foot. Steps around Galloway. Steps around another. Steps around another. Jamie Soward has scored! That's the fastest man at Cogra.
So they were just some of the highlights of Jamie at the Dragons from 2009 until 2011. Exhilarating player, and we're delighted to have him as a guest on the very first episode of the Red V podcast. Jamie, welcome to the Red V podcast, and thank you so much for your time this evening, mate.
No worries. Always podcasts are the way of the world, so always happy to jump on and share some stories, especially the Red V one. I'm looking forward to listening to you guys.
Well, Jamie, how's the off-season been for you? Obviously, you're a bit of a media mogul these days. There's not too many places in sports media that you're not working. How have the summer months been for you, mate?
Yeah, look, it's a bit quiet once the footy season finishes, but I do a little bit of work. Bill and Boz covering all sports, and I'm busy enough with my daughter, so it's actually been quite refreshing just to have some nice time with her and watch her grow up, and then. Because between the months of February and sort of October, I'm pretty flat stick. I don't get any weekends or anything like that. I'm just, try and squeeze in, 12 months work into about 8 months. So, the off season is, I'm ready to go back to work and, see what happens in 2020. But, it's been nice having some downtime.
Yeah, certainly has. Congratulations again on the birth of your daughter as well, Jamie. I know, that must be such an exciting time for you and your wife. Jamie, kicking off. You came to the Dragons in 2007. Obviously, you'd been playing at the Roosters before that. I think you played your junior football in Wagga, if I'm not mistaken. What was the move like coming to the Dragons? Obviously a club with a lot of prestige, but at midway through 2007, they were struggling a little bit, Saints.
Yeah, I played in. Well, I was born in Canberra. A lot of people think I was born in Wagga, but I was born in Canberra. Moved to Wagga. Played for Wagga Kangaroos, and then the move to the Dragons was. I just sort of. Graduated through the Roosters lower grades and been to, we won the 20s competition undefeated. We went to 2 reserve grade grand finals in a row. So I probably had a little bit of expectation that, we were going to carry on a lot of that to the next part of bringing the Roosters through. But, 2007, I spent the first 2.5 months in reserve grade and played 1 game. And, that was that. By that time, I'd already shaken hands with Nathan Brown. I met him at Gloria Jeans down at Cronulla, and just struck up a conversation. And Dragons had Richie Williams, and they'd sort of struggled to get a halfback really to help them after that period. They had a lot of injuries as well, so just a handshake deal, and pretty much that's how I did my business at the Dragons until the last contract, which I'll talk about later. But it was just over a coffee, and I just wanted an opportunity, and it worked out great.
Jamie, was it true that your old man was a Dragons fan as well? Did that have any implications or any that kind of make it easy to make a decision, or was it purely just you wanted to play first team football and you're happy to go to any side that was kind of offering their services?
Yeah, I wanted to play first grade, and I thought I just needed an opportunity. I needed, instead of 1 game in, 3 games out, I needed 10, 20, 30 games in a row, and if I was consistent, I would be able to do that. My dad, was a Dragons fan, but he never got to see me play for the Dragons. But my stepdad, was a huge Dragons fan. I even dressed up as in Dragons jersey in the 99 grand final. I was a Shark fan back then. And I had to put the jersey on and support him. So, he always joked, one day when you go to the Dragons, boy, you'll be a first grader. And it's pretty surreal to know that both my stepfather and my father were both Dragons fans.
So came to the Dragons in 2007. I think you made your debut against Brisbane at Cogger. Obviously a pretty famous ground when you think of all the legends of the 50s and 60s that played there. Obviously, nice to get off to a winning start. What was it like to work under someone like Nathan Brown, who we now know he went to Huddersfield and had a lot of success in the English Super League and was at the Newcastle Knights as well, and he was obviously the one that brought you over before Wayne Bennett took charge. What was it like to work under Brownie when you first went to the Dragons?
Yeah, I think, I remember I lived at Illawarra, which is just up the road from Cogra, and I remember walking to the game in a hoodie, and no one talked to me, or I had to show my pass to get in, and we beat the Broncos, who'd won by 70 points the week before, and it took me a little bit longer to get home. So, look, I think Brownie, the Dragons were sort of similar to how the Roosters were. Yes, they've been successful in 05, 06 and not got the job done. 07, they had a lot of player change, and Brownie probably still learning. He was a club player and coaching some of those guys that he played with. So he was adjusting. I think if you ask Brownie, he would say that his time was better. After he'd come back from England, he'd learned a lot about coaching, and we had a conversation. I mean, he was getting me trying a quick fix, and I was still trying to find my way in first grade. So, working under Brownie and trying to get the best out of me in those early stages was hard because I was still trying to find my way. So, in the end, it was a learning experience for both of us, I think.
So unfortunately, we see the demise of Nathan Brown after the end of 2008. Even though the Dragons did make the finals, but there'd already been a big deal to bring Super Coach Wayne Bennett down from Brisbane. What was your feelings with Wayne Bennett coming in? Obviously, having won a lot of premierships with Brisbane and coached Australia, coached Queensland. Were you excited, nervous? What's the feeling with you and within the squad there just before pre-season starts?
Yeah, well, I was supposed to get Wayne as a coach at the Roosters, and when I was there, but the deal fell through at the last minute, and my stepdad said he'll change your career if you ever. It's a shame you never got to be coached by him. And then, halfway through 08, when it was decided that Brownie was that was going to be his last season, Wayne called me, and I just remember being really, really nervous, and I didn't finish. I was injured at the back end of 08 and didn't get picked for the finals game, and it was frustrating, but when Wayne was coming, the expectation just started to lift as soon as he walked in the room, and I trained really, really hard in 09, and we all got super, super fit, and we didn't really know what we had. I don't think if you look back at the start of 09 to the end of to the grand final, it's a completely different team, not necessarily in players, but in terms of who we knew who we were. Once we found our identity in 09 when Wayne got there, I thought we were the best team in the competition over those 3 years, regardless of what other people will say. I think that we left a title there. We probably should have won. 09 was a learning experience, but I felt like we should have won in 2011. We just ran out of puff, really.
Talking of 2011, sorry to jump around a little bit, Jamie, but I know there was a lot of talk in the media in the lead up to that semi-final in 2011 that Wayne Bennett obviously signed on for the Knights, wasn't going to continue as coach of St George Illawarra, and he'd gone up to meet, I think, with some of the Knights players and some of the Knights staff. As a player, if you do hear that kind of stuff, where that kind of stuff's going on, does it affect you at all? Does it affect the way you're thinking, or is it just kind of, well, he's coaching next year, he can kind of do what he wants?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough because I spoke to Gaz about this last year. Actually, I don't really remember too much about it, but he sensed that a couple of guys who'd really lent on Wayne, myself being one of them, that the air had been taken out of what we were trying to build there, and maybe that was one of the things that contributed in the end, but for me, it was like an opportunity to prove myself that I didn't need Wayne, because people arguably say that, I was one of his best projects in terms of, and I don't say that lightly. I say it, one of his best projects in terms of getting the absolute best and most out of a guy, who had limited skill set in terms of, ball playing and stuff like that. And it was tough. But when you lose the greatest coach of all time, you don't want it to happen. And I remember thinking I need to try and get up to Newcastle because I wanted to try and just keep playing great, and I knew what he did for me, and I knew that the structure he had around me was part of why I made State of Origin and why we'd won a comp and World Club champions and all that stuff.
2010, obviously a watershed year for the Dragons. First Premiership as a joint venture, and especially after what had transpired in 2009 where Saints had gone out back-to-back, losing to Parramatta in the first week. Jared Hayne playing a brilliant game at Cogra, and then losing up at Suncorp Stadium against Brisbane. 2010, obviously winning a grand final must be such an immense experience as a player. But what memories do you have of that season, Jamie?
Yeah, you spoke about 2009. We were shell shocked. I went to bed for a month thinking that this was it. This is going to be everything that I'd ever dreamed of, watching grand finals and the players. And then all of a sudden we're back home and, having a drink and thinking, what have we done? We've missed an opportunity. So 2010, there was a different feel about it. It was more, pre-season was tough. But the foundation had been laid the year before. So a lot of the work in 2010 was already, behind and in the books from 2009. We just needed to get back to that, and that's the hardest thing when you lose in a heartbreak like we did, and I guess embarrassment of 1v8, and going to Brisbane. That you got to wait a whole year to get back to that. But once we got back to the finals, I felt like more business-like that we weren't going to be touched if we played to our potential and what we'd built on. We weren't going to be touched.
I think one of the most frustrating things as a Dragons fan, Jamie, particularly during those 3 years, and it obviously came before you were at the club and those kind of 04, 05, 06 when the Dragons had pretty much an international caliber side and didn't get it done in the final series, is that media labelling and obviously opposition fans as well labelling the Dragons as chokers. How frustrating is that, or is it frustrating at all when that's kind of been thrown around for 26 weeks in 09, and then that you guys bow out in back-to-back weeks, and then it pretty much happened. People were talking about it for all of 2010, despite Saints dominating from pretty much round 1 to 26.
Yeah, look, the chokers tag, I felt like it was that 04, 5, 6 team. That I was at the semi-final when they lost in 05 when they should have beat the Tigers. And they were red hot favourites, and I sat and watched it with my stepdad because we played the game before, and he was just in shock. He just couldn't believe, that what had happened. And the choker tag, probably I didn't really care about it, to be honest, because I knew if we played great and won, that we could just shove it up everyone who said it. So when we went into that final series, the media, look, I'll tell you this about the media. After seeing both sides of it, the media just do their job, and their job is to create interest and sell papers and all that kind of stuff. Now, some of it's a bit far-fetched, but, leading into that 2010 series, we were chokers. We'd finished first. We'd lost to the 8th place. We couldn't get it done in Brisbane, and we had something to prove. So I just think it's only been 10 years since the Dragons won, and they're still called the chokers. I just think that's unfair now, considering that there's the Warriors, there's Parramatta, Titans. They've all gone longer. There's teams out there that haven't gone. They haven't made the finals. So the choker tag for me was probably why I celebrated the way I did when we won, was sort of up yours, and I enjoyed it.
2010 grand final day. As a player, what what is it like from kind of the minute you get up to the moment you win the premiership? What are you kind of going through? What are you feeling?
Yeah, I just remember being really excited. Didn't really know, didn't want to play the game early. And for me, the best preparation was the week before against the Tigers, because it was at ANZ Stadium. There was 80,000 there. That was the grand final in my eyes. I thought whoever won that game was going to win the grand final. And grand final day just unfolded. We got up. It was raining. So we stayed in. We just played a little game of Chinese whispers and had a bit of a laugh at each other, and went back to our room, and it was normal prep. And we got on the bus, and I think once we got there, it's a bit tense in the dressing room, obviously, because this is the biggest day of your life. But like I said, that week before, I was probably more nervous, knowing that I was so close, but yet so far from achieving my childhood dream. So grand final day, you just try and slow it down as much as possible because the game happens so quickly.
Fast forwarding, Jamie, after 2010, we spoke about 2011 briefly before. The Dragons led the premiership for a while and then kind of faded a little bit. Unfortunately, weren't able to have as much success in the final series as they did the previous season. The Dragons decide to promote Steve Price from assistant coach into that head coach role, and they kind of drumming up support to the fans and just saying that it's going to be the same protocols and the same methods that Wayne Bennett used. Unfortunately for you, it was a bit of a sad exit, and even a lot of the Dragons fans. We just got one. It was not even really a question, just a comment here from one of our fans, Liam Watson, who said, can you please tell how he realised a lot of the Dragons supporters were shattered when he got ousted the way he did, and that we believe he was a massive part to our success under Bennett, one of the joint venture's best players. Can you talk us through a little bit about what transpired when Steve Price took on as coach, and what ultimately led to your exit from the Dragons?
Yeah, so Pricey was great in those years under Wayne as an assistant. He was always out on the field, and the banter back and forth, and just trusting. Sometimes, having done that a couple of times, when to deliver the message and how to deliver it and all that kind of stuff. And we had a really great working relationship. And then when he was coach, I think that I wanted things to stay how it was under Wayne, and he wanted to put his own touch on things. And, I felt like once, 2012, I think we finished 9th. And then we had, obviously, Dino and Benny and some of these guys getting a lot older, and Gaz had retired. So, it was a changing of the roster, and I probably felt like I had the chance to, be that next person to bring the next wave through, and didn't see eye to eye on a couple of things with Pricey, and just at the end of the day, it was for me off field. I had some off field stuff going on inside my personal life with my ex and kind of stuff, but I just probably wanted it to stay how it did under Wayne mostly, and couldn't get my head around the couple of changes. And then the exit's never been really talked about to Dragons fans as plain, because I still see Dragons fans and they say, I can't believe you left the Dragons. Well, we played a game against the Tigers, I think, Cogra, and my manager said that Gus had put some feelers out there and about what I was doing next year, and I wanted to stay at the Dragons and finish my career there. And that was my first preference. And then there was some talk about they were getting Widdop and stuff like that. And, I was sort of saying to my stepdad privately, like, Gareth Widdop, is a great player, but he hasn't won a premiership at this club. I deserve some respect in and around this club. And I didn't get it, to be honest. You take the off-field stuff, and, we were trying to get roster change, and, had some bad games, sure, but for Penrith, who were building a new facility, to come in and offer me 4 years straight away, I expected the Dragons to at least have 3, and they came back and said that they couldn't offer me any more than 1 year, and it was half the money per year than Panthers offered. So that to me was sort of like FU. Yeah. And then, obviously the pricey thing, we'd lost the extra point game or golden point game against the Bulldogs, and he just said, we don't want you in the full-time squad anymore. So it was embarrassing for me, because I was like, I was blown away. I was blown away that, I get, sometimes, but it's not my place to run the team. My place is to play footy, and I'm not there to coach the team. So I just felt like I deserved more respect. And for Dragons fans, it's my biggest regret that I never ever got to do the lap of honour. I watched Horse and Feensy and all those guys, great guys for the club, and really great guys off the field, get a lap of honour at the end of their retirement when they'd finished. And I was in England, stuck in a one-bedroom apartment, thinking, that why didn't I get that?
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point, Jamie, because I think that's a lot of people call St George Illawarra fans negative, but I think they are negative because of they've seen what's happened in the past with management and what the Dragons kind of head honchos have done to particular players and the way that they've treated them. And I think a lot of fans would certainly be on your side if it ever came to an argument, particularly so disappointing having won a premiership for St George Illawarra and had so much success. You played State of Origin, you were in the Indigenous All-Stars squad, scored a host of tries and a host of points for St George Illawarra. It's, I think every Dragons fan would say how disappointing it is that not only did you not get that lap of honour, but not get to play another 2 or 3 years of your best footy with the Dragons, I think is probably one of the biggest missed opportunities that the Dragons have possibly ever done.
The thing about, like, some people say, well, he didn't play great in 2012, and there was a downhill, spiral coming in 2013. Yeah, the Penrith Panthers, we took them to within one game of the grand final. So that was probably one of my best years, and I'd matured, and it's still a bed bug. I mean, I go back to Cogra now, and I work there, and I did a piece for NRL.com and sat on the hill with some of the people there, and I wanted to advertise it more and just enjoy it. I just want to say thanks to the fans, because Dragons fans to me are they're fickle, but they're loyal, because they just want to win, and they're so passionate. And I'll never forget at Canberra in 2012, I think it was, we lost on the buzzer, and I walked off without shaking hands against the Canberra Raiders, and I got hammered by fans everywhere. And I just happened to catch a glimpse of some social media in and around the Dragons, and there was a couple of people sticking up for me, and I thought, they understood that, the game's not won on handshakes, and yes, being a good sport is part of what you've grown up as, but for me, nothing mattered more than winning in that Red V. And I think that I built my game off emotion. If I didn't have any emotion, then I wasn't doing my job. So the fans, I just wanted to say thanks to the fans, because I never got to do that, and it's that's my only regret in my career, mate, is that I never got a lap at Cogra or Wollongong.
Well, I'm sure the fans would be thanking you back, Jamie, for some wonderful years of service in the Red V. Let's just shift our attention, Jamie, to the current Dragons roster. 2019 was probably one of the worst seasons, statistically the worst season that St George Illawarra's ever had. What did you make of their season last season, and is there a bone in your body that can see the Dragons turning around in 2020, or at least kind of fighting for a spot in the top 8?
Obviously, there's a lot of they had some injuries and I guess distractions off field, but I don't think that's an excuse. That forward pack without Jack DeBellin was still capable of probably being in the top 5 or 6 packs when you look at internationals and stuff like that. So I thought last year, too much chopping and changing. If once Gareth Widdop goes down, of course, you have to make changes. But the confusing stuff to me was, Corey Norman plays 5/8 for Queensland, and then the next week he's picked at fullback because Gareth Widdop's coming back. And this is not, I don't say it personal. I'm not a personal guy. I say it as an analyst and as I see the game. And if I'm not doing that, then I'm not doing my job. So I think that, that was disrespectful to Corey. I think that Gareth Widdop could have come in and played fullback, and then you get time, for Corey and give him rewards for making the Queensland side. I mean, that's a huge honour to play State of Origin, and then to come back and say, we're going to play at fullback this week. Like, this is the guy that's going to carry your chances for the next 4 years. You got him there from Parramatta. You paid a lot of money for him, and now you're disrespecting him by that because, again, no disrespect to Gareth. He was fantastic for the Dragons, but the season was gone. You needed to concentrate on what you had in the cupboard to see what you got going forward. And I just think that was a bed bug of mine. Their attack looked pretty ordinary at stages. Their kicking game, purely from a halfback point of view was, from my point of view, was just unimaginative. A lot of cheap turnover possession, a lot of, just kicking for the sake of it. There was no plan there. There was no, if you go fishing and you catch a fish, you stay there. You don't change it the next time. I've always felt like when we played in those years and when I was playing and kicking that I had a plan. I knew where I wanted to go. I knew what I wanted to do. And, too much chopping and changing. And I think that, this year, to be honest, I don't see them. I don't see them improving too much. I looked at their squad. There's a couple of interesting selections are going to have to be made. I think that Zach Lomax, you need some strike power in the centres, and Zach Lomax, although he wants to play fullback, he could easily be a centre and get the ball and at least give you a point of attack that's different.
Yep.
Tristan Saylor is going to be outstanding, but he's not going to be good on the wing. I've watched him play reserve grade on the wing. I've watched him play first grade on the wing, and he just doesn't get involved. And he's not his dad. He's not 115 kilos and can run 30 times from the back. So I think they've got some selection headaches. I looked at their squad from 1 to 30, and it's deep in the forwards. Now that you get Merrin and Isaac Luke, but I would question recruitment in and around. Did they? If Latrell Mitchell's on the market, the Dragons ruled themselves out pretty early for not, and they don't have a strike centre. So that was, I just think this year they need to make some changes. I did a preview for NRL.com and I had James Graham coming off the bench. I think that you can have Merrin up front with Vaughan and have James Graham come on after 15, 20 minutes and play the next 60 if he needs to. But they're going to need to start fast this year. Otherwise, the reins could be handed over pretty quickly.
And obviously, there's a lot of pressure on Paul McGregor. He's been at the Dragons since 2014, just the 2 finals appearances. Both those seasons, Jamie, the Dragons had been, I wouldn't say running away with the competition lead, but they were certainly up there as one of the form sides of the competition, and both times slumped really poorly in the second half of the season. Do you think he's the right man for the job? Because when it comes to recruitment, I know that he isn't overseeing it like other NRL coaches are. They've got Ian Millward who's doing that job, but surely he has a say in recruitment. When you're signing, you need outside backs, and you're signing Isaac Luke when you've already got an 80-minute hooker, and Cameron McInnes, who's just been named the Dragons captain as well, which is a great move. You wonder why they aren't chasing the likes of, I don't know, Josh Adokars looking to move back to Sydney, and the Dragons would certainly have some competition with the likes of South Sydney and the Roosters and the West Tigers and those kinds of teams. But it's funny that that's not who they're chasing, and they've decided to sign some players that you have to say Isaac Luke probably passed his best.
Yeah, well, it depends what they're bringing him in for. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me if you're going to bring him in and play him in the 17 week to week when McInnes is your 80-minute hooker. That's a question on a lot of Dragons fans. But if he's coming in to play that 13 role, maybe a point of attack that's different. But I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think Paul McGregor he's certainly had his a fair old run at getting stuff done and hasn't been able to get past that point. But the pressure's on him. I just thought they would have signed some outside backs. Would like to have seen the thing that my stance on Ben Hunt is if he's your best 9 and he plays all that stuff, just play him at 9. Dragons fans will get over the price tag. If he's playing his best footy at 9 and playing the best that he can, then you say to McInnes, sorry, mate, we're going to go this route, and you get a halfback. And, you go on, and even if you got Caesar and you had Norman and Ben Hunt at 9, like that to me acts a little bit more punch, than what you sort of had last year. So I just think that, if he doesn't want to play, if he wants to play 9, let him play 9. The Dragons fans, at the end of the day, they don't care how much you earn. They want to win. And the price tag, unfortunately, is coming against Ben because, they haven't been able to get the job done. And he's playing at 7. And, sometimes they need a spark. They need something different. So, they've got to get off to a fast start this year, that's for sure.
Jamie, just got a few questions before we let you go, just from some of the fans that have jumped up on our Red V podcast page. So if you do want to get in contact with us, make sure you search the Red V podcast on Facebook. Jamie, some of the questions that people have fired through with us, we've answered a couple of them just through our own conversations. But a few people have been asking if you would ever have a crack at the Nines.
No.
You're done playing rugby league, mate?
Once I retired, I said, unless obviously for a charity game where it's not full contact, my body wouldn't be able to hold up to it. I'm not interested in the Nines. I just want to see everyone get through uninjured and be ready for the season.
Chris Shelston has said, if you had an open checkbook, who would you sign for the Dragons and why?
An open checkbook.
Yeah.
Obviously it depends who's on the market. And depends what you've got. I'd like to see. I thought Latrell, would have at least had it. I thought the Dragons would have at least knocked the tyres and had a conversation with Latrell about, possibly coming down. You could have easily gotten the job done. Swap Lomax, swap someone else, and then possibly get Latrell. Now that he's off the market, that's a tough one. I think you build around your 9, 6, 7, and 1, and the rest of it gets done. But the outside backs, I'd probably sprinkle it and have a couple of outside backs.
One of the questions that we got on our Twitter page, Jamie, was from Nathan Brooks, who, I don't know if you know him, but he is a producer with Fox Sports, and he was asking if you took a dive against Canterbury at Cogger in 2009.
Yeah, I did. It was a reaction. Turned around and Eastwood was standing there, and sort of acted a little bit, I guess, more than what the contact was. But in the same position, rewind the clock, I'd do the exact same. I think that we've seen over the years that a lot of people have done that to help get their team to win, and we won. So. It's a good talking point for Bulldogs fans wherever I go and do functions.
Yeah, well, I was actually watching that game. I was leading youth group that night, and I saw it, and I was fuming, so I walked away from the TV, and it wasn't until I got home at about midnight, and I got a notification that the Dragons had won by 2 points, so I was very shocked, but I'm sure, along with a lot of other Dragons fans, Jamie, we're very thankful that you did decide to do your best Italian soccer impression and get us the 2 competition points as well. So one last question just from us here, Jamie. Is there anyone that you've seen? I know you did the commentary for Channel 9 in the New South Wales Canterbury Cup, and maybe you've seen a bit of the Jersey Flegg in recent years. Anyone that you're seeing coming through for the Dragons that you think could kind of change the outlook for the future, or someone that the Dragons fans can get excited about for the next few seasons?
Yeah, he had a write-up a couple of weeks ago in the paper. Cody Ramsey had some stuff to do with him. I know his family really well, and he for me is a footballer. He's got to put some meat on it and still learn the game. But in terms of raw talent and fullback, which is, we'll wait and see how Zach Lomax goes at fullback because the back three of Lomax, Saylor and Pereira it's very small in terms of getting your set started when you compare it to Tuivasa-Sheck, Mamalo, and Fusitua. So, he's a kid that I've watched closely. I've worked with him. I think that he understands the game. He's super fit, and he looks like Jesus. So maybe that's the only thing that can help the Dragons at the moment.
Maybe. I don't know if there's much else that can help us at the moment. Jamie, we just want to really thank you for your time. It can be pretty difficult starting a podcast, so to get a former Premiership winner and someone that wore the red V with pride, and we really do appreciate your time jumping on the podcast tonight. And I think I speak on behalf of a lot of Dragons fans that are so appreciative for the hard work that you put in for the club, and obviously winning so many vital games for us that those right and left pegs of yours certainly came in handy for a lot of games for the Dragons. And it's fantastic that you've been able to have such a lasting impression on Dragons fans. So we thank you so much for stopping by the Red V podcast and chatting lots of football with us tonight, mate.
Too easy, mate. Good luck for the year.
Jamie Soward there talking all things rugby league with Hear Us on the Red V podcast. Yeah, so an interesting chat there with Jamie Soward and Tristan. Very, very candid individual, and obviously he's talked about one of his biggest regrets not getting that lap of honour at Cogra Oval, something that obviously still burns inside. I'm quite sad to think about as Dragons fans.
Yeah, look, in all honesty, I was reaching for the tissue box. It was, he was so raw and so real, but also just gave great insight into, I don't know, day to day, week to week, what goes through the mind of a professional athlete such as himself and so many like him. So that was a great chat to Jamie. What are your thoughts?
It was. I think sometimes when you chat, and I've chatted to a lot of rugby league players with my commentary work in reserve grade, sometimes they can kind of be either A, very reserved, or B, if they're not reserved, they kind of have those prepared answers. They've done media training with the club and those kinds of things, and it's kind of like, full credit to the boys. And we
play the full 80 minutes,
we did these things right, we did that, and just kind of being ultra positive. But I think it was good to see someone that was willing to kind of be straight up and speak the truth. And I think he seems like a wonderful individual, Jamie Soward, not just on the field for the Dragons. We know what he did for St George Illawarra, but off the field it was very, very, very nice to chat to him. So we really do thank Jamie for his time this evening. Before we do wrap up the first episode of the Red V podcast, we're going to do something each week when we do the podcast, and it is called the Red V podcast play of the day. And I don't think we can really go past what the Dragons did today. And I know that the management, we spoke about this with Jamie, Tristan, cops a fair bit of flack, and rightfully so for some of the decisions they make. And I think particularly Paul McGregor's, I guess, hasn't done for the Dragons in recent years and put pressure on himself. But one of the things that they've done really well and a positive move in the right direction is the Dragons getting Cameron McInnes as hooker. The 25-year-old has missed just one game in his few seasons at St George Illawarra. Probably the best player to have there leading from the front for St George Illawarra in the 2020 season.
A few things are certain in this life, and one of the things that is very certain is, whenever the Dragons post something on their social media, you'll see, you head to the comment section, and sure enough, there's passionate Dragons fans eager to see some change. There's some form of criticism, some form of frankness, if I'll be so kind to say. But when they announced Cam's captaincy today, I honestly didn't see one comment that said, wrong choice, wrong person, and so if nothing else, this pleases our fans, and just turns that frown that much more upside down. So I'm personally excited to see by far our most spirited player, what he can do in leading our club in the Red V this season.
Yeah, a great player, a great leader, someone that you just need to see that chase he gave in the match against South last year. He ran about 50 or 60 metres and was able to make a try-saving tackle. The Dragons had no chance of playing the finals. They weren't even going to win that game, but to see that kind of commitment from someone, and that's what you want from your captain. You want someone that's leading from the front and saying to the other guys, whether it's the veterans or the young guys that just broke in the side, hey, we might be struggling, but why don't you hop on my back and I'll show you how to get out of this mess. And that's, I think, what the Dragons need at the moment, someone that can give them leadership and determination and courage. And I think that's exactly, what Cam McInnes does. And I think that's why he's our play of the day for this week here on the Red V podcast. Before we do finish up the show for this week, we'll let you know of our social media channels that you can get involved with. And we do thank everyone that has got involved so far. We've had over 900 likes on Facebook, got over 200 followers on Twitter. We thank you, the Dragons fans that have been so willing to say really nice comments to us and encourage us for this podcast. I was honestly surprised when I saw that there wasn't a St George Illawarra fan podcast or a podcast that was even run by the club, because I think that the Dragons, and I'm biased, I think they're the best rugby league club in the world. I think we have I think we have the best fan base. I know people will call us fickle sometimes. But I think it just means we love our club more and more each year. And I just want to thank you guys and girls for jumping on and showing us support. We hope you enjoy today's podcast as much as we've kind of built it up in the week leading up to this podcast. And we hope that you continue to enjoy the podcast. The way you can get in contact with us, we've got a couple of ways. We're on Facebook if you want to search the Red V podcast on your Facebook search bar. We're also on Twitter at the Red V podcast. That's at the Red V podcast. We've obviously posting updates and previews and different tidbits of news in regards to the Dragons. You can also email us. It is the redvpodcast at gmail.com. That is redvpodcast@gmail.com. And you can also subscribe to us on both Spotify and also Apple Podcasts or iTunes if you like, by just searching the Red V podcast in both of those search bars, and you'll be able to get that show as soon as it drops, pretty much 9 p.m. Each and every Monday night. For next week's show, we're going to be chatting to Chris O'Keefe. You might have seen him. He's the state political reporter for Channel 9 News, but he's a mad Dragons fan, married to Yvonne Sampson, so he knows plenty about rugby league, and he is a big Dragons man. So we're going to be chatting to him about his passions as a Dragons fan, how he became a fan of St George Illawarra, or St George prior to the merger, and how he thinks the Dragons are going to go in 2020, because we're not just going to be engaging with former players and current players. We're going to be engaging with you, the fans. So we want you guys to get involved as much. So sometimes that means we'll be interviewing fans of the greatest club in rugby league. Tristan, a pleasure to chat through Dragons football and the podcast with you tonight. Great work as always, mate. It was a pleasure to sit here with you and chat everything Red V tonight.
Jack, it was a pleasure to be in the booth right with you, mate. I admire your passion and I love your proficiency. But mate, I love your friendship most of all. But hey, that's not what we're talking about. Dragons fans, heads up. Surely we can't do too much the worst this season. Touch wood.
Yeah, we're hoping for a much more successful 2020 season, but the season hasn't started yet. There's going to be plenty of pre-season action to get through, and we're going to bring you all of that here on the Red V podcast, whether it's the Perth Nines, we've got the Charity Shield against South, we've got a trial match against Newcastle up at Maitland. There's plenty of action that's going to be getting through, and we're going to make sure that all the Dragons news makes it through here on the Red V podcast. But until next Monday night, it's Jack Clifton and Tristan Bray signing off. Up the Drags.